Freya, if you just give us a thumbs up when you see us broadcasting on YouTube, that's brilliant. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to show and tell number 6 for the back office planning system. It's just me today. Tom has had the luck of taking a couple of weeks or a week off holiday. Some pretty good timing for him. I'm sure he'd had a good night last night. So sad to not have shared that with you, Tom. But today we're going to be going through our back office system and bringing you up to date with everything that's happened since the last show and tell. Which for those of you who follow Twitter and so forth will have seen that it's been quite an exciting time for the team. So, as you know, BoPS is a back office planning system that's paving the way for a digital future in planning. I won't go into it too much. Suffice to say, if you log on to bops.digital, you'll be able to catch up with us and then watch the rest of this demo knowing what we're talking about. Where are we now? Well, in this sprint, we're at number 6 in this phase, we're at sprint number 6 of 7. So we're coming to the end of what we were trying to achieve in this phase. And the MVP launch was obviously the big target that we were gunning for, and that successfully executed last week. So as usual, we'll be answering any questions. We welcome anything that you really want to ask us as part of our working in the open. And here's a link for posting your questions, and Athena will read them out and we'll do our best to field those at the end. So what have we been doing this sprint? The theme has been continuing our validation requests and presenting further application information that is captured by Ripper and fed to BoPS. So there's been quite a lot, as you know. We obviously had the launch of LDCs with MVP. But we've also been meeting with potential partner councils. We've been mapping our end-to-end process in detail. We've been exploring GIS and what layers we might best use. We've been working on a red line drawing tool and coping with the situation where there isn't a digital sitemap submitted by Ripper, implementing the result, payment, information, and putting in a new other request for validation requests. We've also been looking at invalidation letters that go out from BoPS, preparing for the monitoring use of BoPS during private beta, time recording, so we can see how efficient this makes the process, and evolving the user guide. Quite a lot, I think. So we had a really good couple of meetings. I won't say the names of the partners, but there were 3 councils that have made inquiries about joining the Ripper BoPS projects, and we really welcome that. And what we were able to explain is, you know, what joining the project would mean, what we're asking from, what that commitment would look like. And by the way, the answers to that are whatever you can give us. We're really flexible and just happy to share with you and learn from you. We also finding out what partners can bring, because all councils are at different stages in this journey. And as we say, we're happy to learn. By joining, you're able to share your knowledge with us, and we can share that widely among our other partners. And then also how we can help, and that might be guidance, it might be support, but also there are some of the things that we need you to do to be a partner actually deliver real benefits for your teams right now and for the council right now. And so things on the right hand side you can see are like setting up GovPay and setting up dashboards and reviewing the validation list, for example. We've been doing a load of process mapping. This helps me enormously as a person, personally, just because I'm a really visual person and I struggle to make sense of reams of text into a process flow, especially when there are complex loops and so forth. So this is really great, and it's allowing us to have clear ownership of who does what. And when I say who, I'm not exclusively talking about humans. I'm also talking about, well, which system sends this notification, for example? Is it Ripper? Is it on the screen from Ripper? Is it an email? Does it automatically come out from GovPay? Is it sent via Gov notifications? All of this is then tracked and cleared to all stakeholders on the project. Crucially, though, any tool that we work on, given that we've got so many partners, we've got a couple of suppliers, we've also got contractors working in user research and so forth. All of our documentation and everything we do has to be shareable. So the next piece of work around this is making sure that this tool, no matter how good it is rubbish if we can't all see it, access it, and contribute to it. So that's what we're working on there. There's been a big spike, which is agile lingo for research into GIS. So we knew right from the start that GIS is a spatial piece of work we're doing. So GIS would be really important to that. And being able to accurately reference all of the GIS layers that we own or look after or custodians for at councils is really important. By clicking on a map, we can then tell the applicant whether or not they're in a heritage zone, flood zone, and so on and so forth. So we want to capture that as quickly as we can. And being able to draw a very accurate shape is critical. You don't want to be drawing beyond the boundary of your site in case you suddenly start capturing policies and constraints that apply to a neighboring site. So that accuracy is key. In other words, we want that base layer to be vector rather than raster, and we want to be able to snap to the feature or snap to the shape, the line, the node of what's on that baseline, and that would really speed things up. And at the moment, we've had a really useful meeting with a supplier, and the supplier is using the same solution that we are already using in-house at Southwark, which is OS Master Map. And at the moment, that base layer looks like it's in the lead of the options that we have. So that leads us on to our first other speaker today, which is Tom from Unboxed, and he's going to take us through the Redline drawing tool. Tom.
Thanks, Peter. Hello, I am Tom Gaylor. I am a UX designer and researcher with Unboxed, who are working as one of the with the partners on this project. And one of the features that we've had within BoPS for a while is the ability to take in a digital red line drawing. And we've also built a feature that allows that to be proposals for changes to that to be edited and sent to the user. However, we're aware that sometimes the sitemaps with redline drawings that are submitted may come in a variety of versions. They may be in a sort of digital format, but a PDF or a JPEG, or they may be, applications may come in by post, so it might be a paper drawing. What we now support is the planning officer to create a digital red line based upon a PDF, a JPEG, or a paper version that has been submitted, so that each application has that digital red line attached to it. And that's really useful because it supports our flow, creates that digital data, which is going to be super useful, as Pete's just outlined. And we're ensuring we have that for each of the applications that will be going through BoPS in the future. Next slide, please. We've also been looking at how we make use of data that is sent to us by Ripper. So Ripper is reducing invalid planning applications, and it is a tool that is able to ask a series of questions to an applicant and make a recommendation or provide a result based on those questions that it believes that it may be permitted development, for example, or it may need planning permission. And we're now able to show this information to the officer, and this hopefully will speed up their process when they come to determining each case, because they're able to see what result that is, and we're showing the result and a piece of explainer text. Also, if, for example, Ripper has recommended that planning permission may be needed, the applicant is able to say they believe this might be incorrect and provide a reason. We also show that to the officer so they can see that full decision flow and appreciate maybe some nuances of the situational case that could help them in their determination. Next slide. Associated with this, as I've said, Ripper asks these series of questions. Some of these questions will be, for example, if it's around total height of or total volume of the extension, they may trigger, for example, the need for planning permission to be requested. And what we're able to do is to, whenever there is a question such as this that leads Ripper to thinking that planning permission may be suitable for this application, we're able to show those details to the officer. And this really quickly helps them identify the key pieces of information they might need to consider when they're determining an application such as this. And what we're going to do is we have a section at the moment where all these details are stored. We're going to duplicate the relevant ones up within the results section, making it super easy to access. But then also the officer can go and see them in context with all the other details of the questions that have been asked to the applicants, where there's no loss of clarity or information there. I will now hand over to my colleague, James.
Hello. So I'm going to talk about some of the work that's sort of been designed, ready for us to develop in the next sprint. I'm going to talk about what we've developed in the last 2 weeks and pushed to live. So one thing that came up quite early on in the sprint and sort of got accelerated through was all of those questions that Ripper sends us that Tom was just talking about previously. There was a concern that some of those questions are going to have personal data in them. And so the long-term solution is hopefully Ripper's going to say this question's got personal data in it and don't expose it to the public. But for now, we've just pulled it from the public API so all of those questions are not shown on the public register. Next slide, please. So if you've been watching along, we have a thing called validation requests, which is around saying that this document is invalid. And we have 4 reasons. Before this sprint, we had 4 reasons. We said, like, the red line is wrong. We need an additional document. We need a replacement document. And we want to change the description that you've sent. And that would get sent to the applicant, and the applicant can respond, and that gets directly put into the application. So that's a very smooth process. However, of course, there's a long tail of reasons why things can be invalid. We don't want to capture all of them. Well, we do want to capture all of them, but we don't want to create a custom flow for every single thing that could happen. So we've sort of done a catch-all other validation request, which is just a plain text box that says, this is why we're invalidating your application. And then the applicant can respond with a plain text box, and they can just speak in words rather than having a process there. But that is all captured in the system rather than it going in via email elsewhere. And Peter will demo that in a bit. Next slide, please. We've also added a new set of tags. So documents could previously be tagged by the tags that are on the left-hand side because there are plans. We've now added a new set of tags around evidence. So you can now say that this document is a utility bill rather than it being a proposed side plan. I think, next slide. Oh, and one other thing, you may have noticed I was saying validation requests during this presentation, whereas 2 weeks ago I was saying change requests. This was something that we realized was a bit confusing to officers when we were saying change requests, because change requests could happen anywhere through the process. Whereas what we have at the moment is only relevant to validation. So before it gets validated, you may want to have requests that happen after it's been validated, but those are legally different. It has some different consequences that happens there. So we want to say that this is explicitly for validation. So we've renamed it to validation requests and renamed a whole load of stuff so that we're consistent with that. And I think one more thing. We have previously, when we were doing all the validation requests, they weren't being caught in the audit log. They are now. So if you create, as you can see in this screenshot, if you are creating a description change request, we put in the audit log who sent that validation request, what was the previous description, what they're suggesting in the new description, and also when the applicant responds, we capture what the applicant responded with. So not only is all of that automatically happening through the validation, but also it's being logged in a centralized place rather than it happening in some officer's email inbox somewhere. That's everything. I'm going to pass over to Peter now to demo what I've just discussed.
That genuinely is it now, James. I know it's hard to believe that we've done so much work, chap, isn't it? And when I say we, I'm talking about Rhiannon and James. Well done for getting so much of that coding done in the last 2 weeks and getting us live. And well done, Tom, on that design work. That's awesome. So let's have a quick look. This really made me laugh this morning. I thought if anyone who's looking at a system about how you make fewer invalid applications in the new digital world looked at this list, they might think, oh no, everything's invalid. Fear not, in the future, many more things will be valid. It's just that we're testing all the invalidation tools, and this is just the staging environment. This is our test environment, not our live environment. So yeah, let's have a look at some of those things in anger that we were just looking at screenshots of. A case officer would come in, get familiar with the details and the documents of a case, and when they're ready to, they would go in and do their validation. If we do check documents now and go into edit, we can see here the document above, obviously, and then those tags that were being discussed earlier on. And the key thing about us having this new piece of functionality within BoPS is it's growing our ability to process different types of applications. So where before we were able to do LDCs proposed, LDCs existing, with this functionality, that's one more piece in the puzzle that helps unlock immunity cases as well. And this really does show the way agile working can be, that rather than setting out with the aim of, oh, we're going to do this type of application, it's more productive to say, okay, well, what do we need to do to unlock that type of application? Let's build each of those small things. And as we build them up, eventually we get to the point where we can unlock, okay, we can now say we can handle this type of application. And of course, it's fine for us to do that in BoPS, but we have to do it with our sister project in Ripper and make sure that that data transfers over as well. So this is where we would go in and work on evidence. If we wanted to, we might want to make a request. If we said that that the application was invalid, we would then want to start a request for further validation data. We would do that by going into this request for changes section and add a new request. And as the team have already pointed out, we had already the description change and replacement documents and so forth. We've now got our other catch-all validation change. You can explain here to the applicant, this is why it's invalid, and this is what we would expect from you if you wanted to make it valid, which of course they would do. If we made all of these, well, we can do that right now, I guess. That then nips off to the applicant. That's instant. We had a question at the last show and tell. When does that happen? That happens immediately. And we can then see all of the work that we've done in our activity log so that we've got a clear track of all of this. And, you know, a key aspect of what we're trying to do here in BoPS is bring as much of what the case officer is doing in real life into the tool. And by being able to track it all in here when people are on leave, when people are sick, and if a clearing officer is reviewing someone else's work and so forth, they can see everything within the tool. They don't have to ask. So it's a much easier way of doing things. Okay, I think that's everything in the demo, unless any of my team want me to point out anything else. Brilliant. In which case, let's look at what we're covering next. So the theme for the next sprint is showing the Ripper result and ensuring that digital red line creation happens in all cases. What does that mean? It means that in the future, having a red line as a GIS shape, we call it, is critical. In the past, we didn't need to have that. At present, we do. Even in all local authorities must have that, but they tend to have it only in their GIS system. So typically, for example, where I used to work at Wickham, now Bucks, you'd receive a red line in whatever format, paper or whatever, and draw it into your ArcGIS system. What we're hoping, and then you can do policies and constraints check and so forth. we still want to have the door open, as Tom was explaining earlier, about how the applicant wants to make their submission, but we want to make sure that we capture that shape accurately. And then we can do all of those checks, and that shape, we really want that to be able to live within the tool and that we can interrogate from. So that's really important. So what we're doing next, RIPA result, making sure that that comes through and that's fine. The RIPA result details, so all of the information that led to that result being the answer that RIPA gave, making sure that that's clearly visible and separate from other less material information that the case officer might also receive. The red line tool is discussed, and then hopefully if we've done everything that we need to now, we'll do some more user research to make sure, but hopefully immunity cases. We're doing a big review of all of the notifications, not just BoPS actually, but RIPA. These are the communications that go out from these two tools via all of the methods that I described: GovPay, RIPA, BoPS, GovNotify. And we'll be monitoring now all of the user testing that's going on. So that's working with agents and applicants as they use the RIPA tool, but then also the case officers as they process them through in BoPS. The ever-evolving user guide, every time we come up with a new idea and it gets designed and then built and then tested on staging and then pushed to production, when it arrives on production, that means that the case officer needs to do something differently to how they did before. We have a written guide to help inform them, because at the moment we've got still workarounds where we're going back and working on our other systems, and that user guide needs to be updated so that they're completely current with what they need to do. And we are going to be doing more of that process flow mapping. So if you want to get involved, bang the drum. Yes, please do. There's now a growing list, albeit a short list at the moment, but it is growing, of people that are expressing an interest. And when they come to the sessions and they can hear about what we can do to support them and the benefits that that brings in the meantime, before RIPA and BoPS is this fully fledged final solution, then I think they're getting more excited and hopeful about, you know, okay, this has got some benefits right now, not just in the future. So those are the details. And thank you very much for listening. So my question is for Athena. Athena, do we have any questions?
No, we don't.
Oh, perfect. Right, that's it. Oh, no, sorry.
No, we don't. I think it means that our presentation was very clear and everybody's happy with the progress that we're making. So, yeah.
That's awesome, Athena, and it's really making me smile that your tagline says Juliet there. Watch out, Juliet, she's on the march. Any questions from the team, or should we let these good folk go and enjoy the rest of their day?
Oh, actually, I take it back. Someone just sent a message. It says, how will a case officer view historic planning applications on a submitted application?
Oh, I love it. Okay, that is an amazing question. Well done. That would be a headache. So from launch onwards, which happened a week ago Wednesday, this means that information on new applications is being captured in BoPS. This means that we now have a database of information relating to planning applications that isn't your existing database of planning application information. Now, in the future, we'll cope with this in a different way. But at the moment, what we're doing is we are processing that application in BoPS. And then sadly, we are also processing that application in our existing system, iDocs Uniform, for example. The work is done in BoPS and the information is copied into Uniform. So one of the things that a case officer will be doing when processing one of those applications is needing to know the case history for that site so that they can know whether or not, an extension has already been built on that house and we're asking for another extension, for example, the applicant's asking for another extension. Multiple ways of doing this. One, you can log into your existing tool, iDocs Uniform, for example, looking up the site and examining what's there. Two, you can log into public access and you can look up the site and you can examine the information there. Or three, something that we're in the process of building, and we are very excited to have the Power BI gateway server set up as we explained in the last show and tell. What we now need to do is configure that software to look at the uniform database, because what that allows us to do is put a dashboard that a case officer can interrogate into the BoPS tool. They can type that location in, or the address, or the UPRN or whatever, and it will pull from Uniform and display in BoPS the case history for that site. And Power BI does that really beautifully. And also it's a standard Microsoft product, so it's quite popular among councils. And that's a way of even being able to show the case history for a site without leaving the BoPS tool. It doesn't matter that you do leave the BoPS tool, if you leave the BoPS tool to go and check the site history, but it's just a more seamless user experience. So that's one of the options that we're exploring about how we would cope with that in the future. And I can't wait until that software is fully configured and we can do a demonstration of that. Athena, stroke Juliet. Anything else?
No more questions, that's it.
All right, brilliant. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you all in a couple of weeks. Cheerio.